I need a mother for my girls, and you need shelter, the widower cowboy proposed to the outcast bride. The twin suns of New Horizon were sinking below the dusty horizon, casting long orange streaks across the barren landscape. Jax Callahan wiped the sweat from his brow, leaning against the frame of the small dome that served as his home. It was a modest structure, made of recycled metal panels and solar sheets, but it had survived the harsh storms that swept across the colony. For Jax, it was more than just a home. It was a sanctuary for his two little girls, Mina and Leela, who were playing in the sandy yard outside, pretending to be space explorers. He watched them for a moment, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Life had not been easy since their mother had passed. Raising two girls alone in a mining colony at the edge of the settled worlds was no simple task. Every day brought new challenges, from fixing broken water filters to keeping the girls safe from the unpredictable dust storms. Yet despite the hardships, Jax felt a quiet pride in what he had managed. His girls were smart, resourceful, and full of imagination. As the suns disappeared, a faint hum caught Jax's attention. It was low at first, almost drowned out by the wind, but it grew louder, steadier. He squinted toward the sky. A small shuttle, dusty and battered, was approaching fast. That was unusual. Few travelers came this far out, and almost never without a signal. He grabbed a flashlight and started toward the landing pad, calling the girls inside. "What is it, Papa?" Mina asked, her wide eyes filled with curiosity. "Nothing, just a visitor," Jax said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Go inside, girls, it's almost dark." Reluctantly, the girls scampered into the dome, leaving Jax alone with the incoming shuttle. The craft's engines whined as it touched down, kicking up small clouds of red dust. The airlock hissed, and a figure stepped out, silhouetted against the twilight sky. She was tall and lean, dressed in a patched jumpsuit that suggested long travel, long survival. Her hair was a dark cascade, tied loosely at the back, and her eyes scanned the area with sharp intelligence. Jax felt a flicker of something he had not felt in a long time, curiosity and maybe even relief. Not all travelers were trouble. "Hello," he called cautiously, moving closer. "I'm Jax Callahan. You're far from the main colony. Do you need help?" The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm Lyra Vance. My shuttle, it broke down. I need shelter just for a few days." Her voice was calm, measured, but there was an edge of exhaustion under it. Jax studied her for a moment. He knew what it was like to be stranded, to face the endless cold and dust of New Horizon without backup. He could not turn her away. "Not tonight. You can stay here," he said finally. "It's not much, but it's safe." Lyra's shoulders relaxed just a little, and she followed him across the yard. As they entered the dome, the smell of recycled air and the faint scent of dinner filled the space. The girls peeked from behind the doorway, their eyes wide. "Papa, who is she?" Leela asked softly, clutching Mina's hand. "This is Lyra," Jax said. "She needs a place to rest. We'll see how it goes." Lyra gave a small nod, not imposing, not demanding. The girls relaxed a little, sensing her gentle nature. Jax prepared a small meal, and they all sat together at the low table. Conversation was quiet at first, filled with pauses and cautious glances, but slowly Lyra began to speak. "I wasn't supposed to leave my home," she said. "But things went wrong. I need to stay hidden for a while." Jax nodded, understanding more than he could explain. He had lived long enough to know that people often carried burdens they could not share immediately. The girls, curious and brave, started asking her questions. "What planet are you from?" Mina asked. "Far away," Lyra replied, "a place with tall forests and cities that float above the ground." "Wow," Leela whispered, eyes shining. "Do they have animals like ours?" Lyra smiled softly, a rare warmth that made Jax feel the tension in the room ease. "Different kinds," she said, "but some things are the same. Life, laughter, and kindness, they exist everywhere." After dinner, Jax showed Lyra her small quarters in the dome. It was nothing luxurious, a simple bed and a shelf for her few belongings, but it was clean, warm, and safe. She nodded in gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply. "I didn't expect anyone to help me." Jax shrugged. "Humans survive together, that's something I've learned." As night fell, the girls lay in their beds, whispering to each other about Lyra. They liked her, Jax noticed. They liked her a lot. And maybe, just maybe, they already considered her part of their little family. The next morning, Lyra stepped outside to watch the twin suns rise. The colony of New Horizon was quiet, save for the hum of machinery in the distance. Dust swirled lazily across the barren land, and the air smelled of metal and sand. She felt a strange sense of peace here, far from the life she had left behind. Jax joined her carrying a small tray with breakfast. "Coffee?" he asked, holding out a cup. "Thank you," Lyra said, taking it. She sipped quietly, savoring the warmth. "It's strange," she said finally. "I've traveled through so many places, seen so many worlds, but I feel safe here. I didn't expect that." Jax shrugged again. "Life's funny that way. Safety doesn't come from technology or walls, it comes from people you trust, and it's earned, not given." Lyra looked at him, studying the rough, weathered face that had clearly seen hardship and loss. Something in his eyes spoke to her, a quiet strength and resilience that she had not encountered before. For the first time in weeks, she felt she might belong somewhere, even if only temporarily. Over the next few days, Lyra settled into the rhythm of the dome. She helped with repairs, cleaned the filtration units, and even showed the girls how to craft small toys from scraps of metal and wire. The girls adored her, laughing and learning in ways that made Jax proud. One evening, as the suns dipped low again, Lyra and Jax sat outside, watching the sky turn shades of purple and red. "You've got quite the family," she said softly. "They're all I have," he admitted. "After everything, I just want them to be happy and safe. That's why I offered you shelter, not because I expect anything else, but because I know what it's like to be alone." Lyra nodded, her gaze distant for a moment. "I've been alone a long time," she said, "and I've learned to survive on my own, but maybe there's a different way. A way where I don't have to be alone." Jax gave a small smile. "Maybe it's not easy, life isn't easy, but sometimes it's worth it." The girls ran out, giggling and carrying a small bundle of scavenged flowers, placing them carefully in a makeshift vase on the table. Mina looked at Lyra and smiled. "You can stay, can't you?" she asked, innocent and hopeful. Lyra bent down and hugged her gently. "I think I will," she said. Jax watched the scene quietly, a warmth spreading through him that he had not felt in years. For the first time since his wife had passed, he allowed himself to imagine something he had thought impossible. A life rebuilt, a family growing stronger together, and perhaps even love. That night, as the dome lights dimmed and the girls slept peacefully, Jax sat with Lyra under the starlit sky. The twin suns had set, leaving the universe wide and endless above them. Somewhere in the distance, other travelers moved through the stars, each alone in their journey. But here, on this small outpost at the edge of human civilization, two strangers had found each other, and for the first time, they both felt the quiet promise of belonging. Lyra's hand brushed against his as they sat in silence. It was a simple touch, yet it spoke of trust, of understanding, of a connection neither had expected. In a world that often demanded survival at any cost, they had discovered something rare: companionship, warmth, and hope. The morning light spilled over the horizon, soft and golden, warming the metal panels of the dome. Jax was already awake, as usual, checking the water filters and the solar arrays before the day got too hot. The girls were still asleep, their small breathing patterns rhythmic and peaceful. Lyra had joined him quietly, leaning against the doorway, watching him move through his morning routine with curiosity. "You do this every day?" she asked softly. Jax glanced up and nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "Every day. You learn quickly that things break faster than you can fix them if you don't stay ahead." Lyra tilted her head, watching him. "I suppose that makes sense. In my home, everything was managed. Systems maintained themselves, but here, it's different." Jax smiled faintly. "Different can be good. It makes you pay attention, makes you notice the small things." She nodded, letting her gaze drift toward the distant ridges of the colony. The wind carried a fine red dust that danced in the morning sun. Somewhere in the distance, a small group of miners were beginning their day, humming softly to themselves as they prepared their equipment. Here, life was not luxurious, but it had rhythm, and that rhythm was grounding. "Want to help?" Jax asked after a moment, holding out a wrench. Lyra raised an eyebrow but took it. "I suppose I could." The day unfolded slowly, a rhythm of learning and teaching. Lyra discovered that raising a colony was not as simple as floating cities and self-maintaining machines. She had to patch leaks, reinforce panels, and balance the water supply for their small hydroponic garden. The girls, already bright and curious, hung around her, asking endless questions. Lyra found herself enjoying their company in ways she had not expected. "What does this button do?" Mina asked, pointing to a small panel in the water unit. That button releases water into the lower tanks, Lyra explained. She handed Mina a small tool. Here, you can help me, be gentle. Mina's hands shook slightly, but under Lyra's patient guidance, she managed to push the button and watch as water filled the lower reservoirs. Her face lit up with pride. I did it, she exclaimed. You did, Lyra said with a warm smile. See, you just needed a little guidance. Leela ran up to them with a bundle of dried flowers she had found. Look, I made a bouquet for the garden, she said proudly. Lyra accepted the flowers and placed them carefully on a small shelf. They're beautiful, she said. Thank you. Jax watched the scene quietly, leaning against the doorway. There was a quiet magic in these small moments, something that no advanced technology or brilliant invention could create. Lyra had a way of connecting with the girls that went beyond simple teaching. She inspired confidence, curiosity, and joy. By midday, the sun was high and the heat pressed down on the colony. Jax suggested a break. He led Lyra and the girls to a shaded area where they could rest. He handed Lyra a simple metal cup of water, cold from the purification system. You're learning fast, he said lightly. I didn't think anyone could keep up with me here. Lyra took a slow sip, letting the cool water soothe her. I'm used to learning fast, she admitted. But this is different. Everything here is hands-on. You can't just imagine the repairs, you have to do them. Exactly, Jax said with a nod. And the colony doesn't forgive mistakes easily, but that's why we survive. By noticing, by acting, by caring about the details. The girls climbed onto a low platform nearby, their legs dangling, their conversation light and filled with laughter. Mina was explaining to Leela how she could make a small water wheel from scraps of metal. Lyra listened, fascinated by their ingenuity. Even in such a harsh environment, the human spirit thrived. You know, Lyra said quietly to Jax, I thought I had seen ingenuity before. But watching them, it's something else. You've raised them well. Jax's expression softened. They're strong, they have to be, but I try to teach them more than survival. I want them to enjoy life, too. Lyra glanced at the girls, who were now testing a tiny water wheel in a shallow trough. Water splashed, laughter rang, and for a moment the harshness of New Horizons seemed to fade. The afternoon brought a small adventure. Jax had found an old hover wagon hidden under a tarp in the back of the dome. Its systems were rusty, and the battery was low, but it could move. He suggested that they take it for a short ride to the nearby ridge, where the view of the twin suns was spectacular. Lyra's eyes lit up. I've never ridden one of those before, she admitted. You'll like it, Jax said with a grin. Just hold on. The girls squealed with excitement as they climbed aboard. Lyra followed, gripping the edges of the wagon tightly. Jax started the engine, and the wagon hummed to life. Slowly, it lifted off the ground, hovering just above the red dust. The wind whipped around them as they moved toward the ridge, the suns painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. This is amazing, Lyra whispered, eyes wide. Mina leaned forward, pointing to the distant mountains. Look, I can see the whole colony from here. Leela clapped her hands. And the clouds, they're so low. Jax laughed softly, enjoying their joy. For a moment, he let go of his usual caution and just experienced the ride with them. There was freedom in the air, a reminder that life was more than work, more than survival. When they reached the ridge, the wagon gently settled on the ground. The view was breathtaking. The twin suns hung low, reflecting off the distant ridges, casting long shadows across the desert floor. Lyra sat quietly, letting the moment sink in. This is peaceful, she said finally. I didn't think I could feel peace again. You can, Jax said softly. It just takes time and the right people around you. The girls ran ahead, exploring the ridge, finding small stones and dried plants to bring back. Lyra followed, helping them collect the little treasures, laughing when Mina pretended to make a map of the stars using rocks. Jax watched from a distance, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. On the way back, the wagon's engine sputtered. Jax quickly examined it and realized the battery was nearly depleted. Looks like we'll have to push it the last bit, he said. Lyra and the girls jumped off, ready to help. Together, they pushed the wagon across the red sands. It was hard work, but laughter and encouragement made it feel lighter. By the time they reached the dome, their faces were flushed with exertion and joy. That was fun, Leela exclaimed. Can we do it again tomorrow? Lyra smiled, ruffling her hair. Maybe if the wagon behaves, Jax chuckled. Tomorrow we'll see, but for now, showers first. That evening after dinner, the girls were already asleep, exhausted from their small adventures. Jax and Lyra sat outside once more, the dome quiet and the stars beginning to shine above. "You've changed things around here," Lyra said softly. "The girls, they're happier." "You're calmer somehow," Jax shrugged, looking at the horizon. "I don't know about calmer, but I'm grateful. It's nice to have someone else here, someone I can rely on." Lyra reached out, brushing a hand against his. It was a simple gesture, but it carried trust, understanding, and a connection that neither had expected. "I think we both needed this," she said. "Maybe," Jax agreed. "Life's strange that way. It gives you challenges, takes things away, but sometimes it gives you something better than you imagined." The stars above twinkled, silent witnesses to the quiet growth of a new bond. In a small, remote colony at the edge of human exploration, a widower, his daughters, and a mysterious outcast were beginning to form a family. Not the one they had imagined, but perhaps the one they needed most. As the night deepened, Jax finally stood, stretching his back. "Come on," he said. "We should get some rest. Tomorrow's another day, and who knows what it will bring." Lyra nodded, following him inside. She paused at the doorway, looking back at the stars. For the first time in a long while, she felt a quiet certainty. She didn't know what the future held, but for now, she was exactly where she needed to be. Jax checked on the girls, tucked them in, and watched their small chests rise and fall with sleep. He looked at Lyra, who was quietly arranging her few belongings. There was still uncertainty ahead, yes, but there was also hope, laughter, and a sense of belonging. The morning air was crisp, and the sky stretched in pale blues over New Horizon. Lyra stood outside, watching the girls chase small gusts of wind across the red sands. Their laughter echoed faintly against the metal domes and rocky ridges. For a moment she allowed herself to simply breathe, to feel the rhythm of life here, simple and grounding. Jax appeared behind her, carrying a small tray with steaming cups of brewed algae tea. He set it down on the ledge of the dome. "Morning," he said with a faint smile. "Breakfast is simple, but it's hot." "Thank you," Lyra said, accepting a cup. She inhaled the steam, letting the scent calm her. "It feels strange to have someone care about such small things." Back home, everything was precise, planned, nothing personal. Jax leaned against the ledge. "Sometimes the small things matter more than the big ones. Tea, a safe roof, laughter, those are things people forget in all the planning." Lyra nodded, letting the warmth of the tea fill her hands. She glanced toward the ridge where the girls were building tiny sand structures. Their innocent focus reminded her that life could be full, even in hardship. "Papa," Mina called, waving. "Come see, we made a castle." Jax smiled and gestured to Lyra. "Want to help me?" She followed him to the girls, kneeling in the sand beside them. Together they began crafting towers and walls, their hands working in tandem, voices filled with laughter. Lyra realized she had not felt this kind of happiness in a long time. The simple connection, the shared creativity, it was grounding in a way she hadn't expected. As they finished, Mina looked up at Lyra. "Do you think you could stay here forever?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Lyra hesitated, caught off guard. She had not considered it. Her life had always been transient, moving from world to world, problem to problem. Permanence was unfamiliar, almost frightening. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. I have a lot I need to figure out first." Leela reached for her hand. "But we like you," she said softly. "I think you could be our family." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She wanted to believe it, but doubt lingered. She had been taught to expect betrayal, failure, and disappointment. To hope too much was to risk everything. Yet here she was with a family that welcomed her. The moment was interrupted by a faint hum in the sky. Lyra squinted toward the horizon and saw a sleek shuttle descending. Its hull gleamed in the sunlight, and as it landed, a small group of people disembarked, wearing crisp uniforms that marked them as envoys from Lyra's home world. Jax stepped protectively in front of the girls, his brow furrowed. Lyra froze. She recognized them immediately, the people she had run from. The envoys looked official, carrying data pads and scanning the area with precise efficiency. "Lyra Vance," one of them called, his voice polite but firm. "You are requested to return immediately. Your presence is required for an inquiry regarding the recent incident on your home planet." Lyra's heart raced. She had anticipated this moment, but it had not come so soon, so unexpectedly. She glanced at the girls, who were now hiding behind Jax, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. I can't leave," Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly. "Not yet. I have responsibilities here." The envoy raised an eyebrow. Your responsibilities are noted, but you are required to comply. Noncompliance could result in penalties upon your return. Lyra's mind raced. She could leave, return to the life she had once known, and clear her name. It would mean safety, recognition, and structure. But it would also mean leaving Jax and the girls, abandoning a family she had only begun to understand, to care for, to belong to. Jax's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "You don't have to answer them right now," he said quietly. "Take a moment, think about what matters most to you." Lyra exhaled slowly, trying to calm herself. She turned to the girls. Mina was peeking from behind Jax, her expression anxious. "Lyra," she said softly, "please don't go, we need you." Leela nodded, stepping closer. "You're part of our family now, please stay." Lyra's chest tightened. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight she had not expected. These two children, innocent and honest, were giving her something she had never allowed herself to want: belonging. The envoy waited, their presence formal but unyielding. Lyra squared her shoulders, feeling a surge of clarity. I cannot leave," she said finally. "Not yet. My place is here with them." The envoy's expression remained calm. "Very well, we will report your decision. You understand the consequences." "I understand," Lyra replied. The envoy nodded and returned to their shuttle, leaving Lyra standing with Jax and the girls. The tension in the air slowly dissipated, replaced by relief. Mina ran up to Lyra, hugging her tightly. "I knew you'd stay," she exclaimed. Leela joined, wrapping her arms around Lyra's waist. For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to smile fully. Jax rested his hand on her shoulder again. "You made the right choice," he said simply, "for all of us." The afternoon passed quietly. The encounter with the envoys left a subtle unease in the back of Lyra's mind, but she found comfort in the girls, laughter as they explored the dome and its surroundings. She helped them collect small rocks and sand samples, showing them how to identify minerals and patterns in the dust. Jax joined in, teaching them practical survival skills and the ways of New Horizon. As the day wore on, Lyra and Jax found a moment alone. They stood on a small ridge overlooking the colony, the twin suns casting long shadows across the landscape. "You could have gone back," Jax said quietly. "You didn't have to stay. You chose this, chose them, chose me." Lyra looked down at her hands. "I did," she admitted. "And I don't regret it, not really, but it's still scary. I've spent so long running, belonging, it's unfamiliar." Jax smiled gently. "Belonging doesn't come all at once, you take it step by step, but the first step is the hardest. You've taken it." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the suns dip lower, painting the desert in shades of pink and gold. There was comfort in the quiet, a rare calm in a life that had been defined by constant motion and uncertainty. That evening, the girls insisted on helping prepare dinner. Lyra guided them in chopping and arranging simple ingredients, laughing as Mina tried to measure flour, and Leela added more than necessary to the water. Jax watched, amused, as Lyra gently corrected their small mistakes. "Cooking is like fixing machines," she explained. "You have to pay attention to each step, but you also have to be creative. If you follow the rules too strictly, you miss the joy." The girls nodded seriously, taking the lesson to heart. Laughter filled the dome, the sound carrying through the small corridors and out into the desert night. After dinner, Jax suggested they step outside for a while. The air was cool, and the stars shimmered with brilliance above. The twin suns had set, leaving a deep, velvety night sky dotted with distant planets and streaking meteors. Lyra and Jax sat together, the girls lying nearby, pointing out constellations they had imagined. Lyra felt a strange sense of peace, realizing that she was beginning to see a future here, one that did not require her to run or hide. She could build something meaningful, something lasting. "You've changed this place," Lyra said quietly, "and you've changed me." Jax glanced at her, a soft smile playing on his lips. "We've changed each other, and the girls, it's good, isn't it?" Lyra nodded, a small smile forming. "Yes, very good." The girls, now sleepy, curled up together on a small mat, murmuring softly about stars and adventures. Lyra watched them, her heart full. She had never imagined that she could care for anyone so deeply, and yet here she was, fully invested, fully present. As the night deepened, Jax and Lyra stayed outside a little longer, sharing stories of their pasts, of dreams they still held, and of the small hopes that had brought them here. They spoke quietly, careful not to wake the girls, but each word strengthened the bond forming between them. By the time they went inside, the sense of family was undeniable. The dome was quiet, the girls finally asleep, and for the first time in a long time, Lyra felt safe, welcomed, and wanted. She had made a choice, one that could change everything, and she had no regrets. Jax watched her tuck the blankets around the girls, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He realized that he was not alone anymore. He had found someone who could not only understand the challenges of raising his daughters, but also care for them deeply. That night, the twin suns long gone, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. In a world filled with uncertainty, Lyra, Jax, and the girls had carved out a small corner of stability and love. They had chosen each other, and in that choice they found hope. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe that she truly belonged somewhere. Not just in a place, but in a family, in a life she could call her own. And as she drifted into sleep, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. The morning dawned with an unusual quiet over New Horizon. The twin suns rose slowly, casting long shadows across the red sands. Jack stood outside the dome, inspecting the water collector that sat on the ridge, noting its usual creaks and hums. The wind was lighter than normal, but there was a faint tension in the air, a kind of stillness that made the hairs on his arms prickle. Lyra stepped beside him, carrying a small tool kit. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Jack shook his head, squinting at the horizon. "Maybe. Sometimes the air feels off before the big storms. It could be nothing, but we should be ready." The girls tumbled out of the dome, Mina with a makeshift telescope she had cobbled together from spare parts, and Leela carrying a small tray of collected rocks. "Good morning," Mina called cheerfully. "We're ready for adventure." Lyra smiled at their enthusiasm. "Adventure is always good, but first we need to make sure the dome and systems are ready." Jax nodded. "We'll check everything and then we can explore. Sound fair?" The morning passed in a careful routine. Jax and Lyra checked the water filters, patched minor leaks, and reinforced the panels on the dome that were weak from recent windstorms. The girls helped where they could, learning quickly. Mina followed Lyra closely, mimicking every movement with precision, while Leela enjoyed helping Jax lift and arrange tools. By late morning, the sky had begun to change. Thin streaks of silver clouds formed above the ridge, unusual for this part of New Horizon. Jax frowned, scanning the horizon. "That's not normal," he said. "It could be the start of a storm." Lyra studied the clouds. "It looks like one of those dust storms the older miners talk about, but it's moving faster than usual." The girls ran toward them, excitement in their voices. "Can we watch it?" Leela asked. Jax knelt to their level. "We can watch, but we need to stay safe. Storms here can be tricky. The wind can blow the dome panels loose if we aren't careful." Lyra nodded. "I'll show you both how to secure the dome from outside if it gets worse, and we'll keep an eye on the water system too." The storm grew stronger through the afternoon. The thin clouds thickened into dense, swirling dust that began to swirl across the desert like a moving wall. Jax guided the girls inside, explaining the need to stay calm. Lyra followed, checking each system as they moved through the dome. Mina and Leela watched her carefully, absorbing every instruction. Lyra's calm and methodical manner reassured them, giving them a sense of security even as the winds rattled the dome panels. "See those straps?" Lyra said, pointing to metal supports along the roof. "We'll tighten them together. That will keep the panels from lifting." Jax grabbed a strap and pulled it tight. "Good. Now hand me the wrench." Together they worked, Lyra and Jax side by side, the girls assisting when possible, securing bolts and clamps. The storm intensified, the wind howling outside, but inside the dome there was a rhythm, a shared effort that kept fear at bay. "Almost done," Lyra called. "Just a few more bolts." Mina and Leela cheered each other on. "We can do it," Leela shouted. Finally, the dome was secure. Lyra double-checked the filters and the water supply, ensuring everything was functional. The storm raged outside, the red dust creating swirling patterns in the sunlight that filtered through the dome panels. Yet inside, the air was calm, the systems humming steadily, and the family safe. Jax exhaled, leaning against a panel. "That's teamwork. Couldn't have done it without you all." Lyra smiled, feeling a rare warmth spread through her chest. "It's amazing what humans can do together. Even in harsh conditions, you find solutions. You improvise, you adapt." The girls beamed. "We helped too," Mina exclaimed. "Yes, you did," Lyra said. "You're quick learners." The storm raged for hours, and the family settled into the dome. passing the time by telling stories and planning small projects for when the skies cleared. Lyra and the girls crafted a small solar water wheel model, demonstrating how water could be circulated even if systems failed. Jax guided them, offering tips and explaining real-world applications. Even as the dust swirled outside, the dome felt warm, lively, and safe. The girls learned resilience, Lyra learned to trust herself in small, practical ways, and Jax learned that sharing responsibilities lightened the load and brought unexpected joy. As evening approached, the storm began to subside. The wind lost its edge, and the dust settled slowly onto the red sands. Jax opened the dome hatch carefully, letting in fresh, calm air. The sky was streaked with golden and pink hues, a reminder that even after challenges, beauty remained. The girls ran outside immediately, breathing deeply, laughing at the sudden calm. Lyra followed, helping them collect small stones and twisted bits of debris left by the storm. Jax watched, proud of how quickly they had adapted. "You were amazing today," he said quietly to Lyra. "Keeping everyone safe, thinking ahead. I don't know what I would have done without you." Lyra smiled softly, brushing a hand against his arm. "We all did it together, that's what matters." The girls returned with small treasures, stones shaped like stars, bits of metal twisted into interesting shapes, and a small piece of colored glass that had glinted in the sunlight. "Look," Mina exclaimed. "We found tiny stars in the sand." Lyra knelt, examining the glass. "You're right, even in a storm, there's beauty, you just have to notice it." Leela held up her stones. "We can make a garden with them," Jax laughed. "That sounds perfect. Tomorrow we can build a small display for all our treasures." That night, as the family sat around a small table inside the dome, sharing a simple meal of preserved fruits and hydroponic vegetables, Lyra felt a sense of completion she had not known before. She was no longer a visitor or an outcast. She was part of this small family, and for the first time she could imagine staying, not just surviving but thriving. The girls were asleep by the time Lyra and Jax stepped outside again, looking at the stars emerging above the desert. The sky was clear now, the twin suns long gone, replaced by distant planets and faint streaks of meteors. The air smelled of sand and warmth, carrying a quiet promise of tomorrow. "You handled that storm remarkably well," Jax said quietly, speaking to her more than to himself. Lyra shook her head, smiling. "No, we handled it. The girls, you, me together, that's what made it work." Jax nodded, looking out across the desert. "You're right, but you're the one who kept a clear head. I would have panicked if I were alone." "You wouldn't have been alone," Lyra said softly. "Not this time." There was a quiet pause as they watched the horizon, the desert calm, the dome a tiny beacon of warmth and life. For Lyra, this was more than safety or shelter. This was a place where she was needed, valued, and cared for. The girls had accepted her, Jax had trusted her, and she had found a purpose beyond survival. In that moment, she realized something else. The family they were forming was stronger than any challenge the harsh world could throw at them. Together, they could endure, create, and even enjoy life amidst the harshness of New Horizon. Jax reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I think we make a good team," he said with a small smile. Lyra squeezed his hand in return. "The best team," she agreed. The night grew darker, stars glittering across the sky like scattered gems. The wind was calm, the storm gone, leaving a fresh promise in its wake. In the quiet of the desert, surrounded by sand, metal, and small echoes of laughter, a new chapter of life began, not just for Lyra, not just for Jax, but for all four of them together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as it always did. But for now, they had survived, learned, and strengthened their bond. And that was enough to face anything the future might hold. The morning air was soft, tinged with the scent of warm metal and desert flowers that had somehow survived the last storm. Lyra stretched, letting the gentle sunlight warm her face, and looked out over the dome. The girls were already awake, their laughter echoing as they ran toward the small garden that Jax had carefully nurtured over the past weeks. Jax appeared behind her, carrying a tray with 2 cups of algae tea and a small plate of toasted grain slices. "Good morning," he said softly. "Looks like the girls have already started the day." Lyra smiled. "It's good to hear them laugh so early, it makes the morning brighter." Jax handed her the tea. "I thought we could sit for a moment." "The day is full, but sometimes it's nice to pause." She accepted the cup, savoring the warmth. "You're right. It's easy to get lost in chores, repairs, and the dust, but mornings like this remind me what we're building here." The girls ran up to them, cheeks flushed with excitement. Mina carried a small notebook filled with sketches of imaginary stars and planets, while Leela held a handful of bright stones collected from the ridge the day before. "Look!" Mina exclaimed. "I drew what we saw yesterday in the storm, all the dust clouds and the stars." Lyra knelt beside her. "These are wonderful," she said, gently tracing the lines. "You captured the movement and the light perfectly." Leela held up her stones. "And I made a collection of the colors from the sky and sand. Maybe we can make a new path in the garden with them," Jax chuckled. "That sounds perfect. We'll make it a place where the colors of the desert can shine, together." The morning passed with laughter and teamwork. Lyra helped the girls arrange the stones into small patterns, while Jax showed them how to plant hardy desert flowers between the cracks of the rocks. Even in this harsh world, life could thrive with care and attention, and the family was discovering that together. As the suns rose higher, a distant hum caught their attention. Lyra squinted at the horizon. A small group of hover wagons approached, kicking up clouds of red dust. The travelers were from a nearby mining colony, friendly faces who often came to trade supplies or share news. The girls ran ahead to greet them, excited for the brief company. Lyra followed, watching Jax interact naturally with the neighbors, exchanging nods and laughter. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known, a place where people were not just surviving but living fully, supporting one another. After the neighbors left, the dome was quiet again. Lyra and Jax sat on the low ridge outside, watching the girls run through the garden. She felt the warmth of the sun on her face and the steady rhythm of life around her, and for the first time she could imagine the future with clarity. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Jax asked quietly, his gaze on the horizon. Lyra considered the question. "I used to think the future was impossible. Running from place to place, always avoiding trouble, I didn't think I'd ever have one that mattered. But now, I see that it can exist. I see that it's built step by step, moment by moment." Jax reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "I feel the same. I used to worry about what life would take from me. Now I see it can also give if we work together, if we care for each other." Lyra smiled softly. "We've built something strong. Something worth staying for." The afternoon was warm and quiet, perfect for small adventures. Jax suggested they take the girls on a short hover wagon trip to a nearby ridge he had discovered weeks earlier. The journey was easy and calm this time, the dust settled, the air clear. The girls squealed with delight as the wagon lifted smoothly above the desert, their laughter carrying over the dunes. At the top of the ridge, they stopped to rest. Lyra and Jax sat together, watching the girls explore the rocks and small pools of water left by the previous storm. The view was breathtaking, distant ridges glowing in shades of gold, soft clouds drifting across the horizon, and the twin suns low in the sky, preparing to set. "You know," Lyra said quietly, "I never imagined I could feel this settled, at home, safe, wanted." Jax glanced at her, his expression soft. "You're wanted. You've earned a place here, not just with me or the girls, but in this world we're building together." The girls ran up to them, holding hands, their faces flushed with excitement. "Look," Mina said, "we found a rock shaped like a star." Leela held a small pool of water carefully. "And a tiny reflection of the sky." Lyra and Jax shared a smile, watching the girls' delight. Even in this distant world, even in a harsh and dusty colony, joy was possible, and it was sweeter because it was shared. As the suns began to set, the family returned to the dome. The sky was a canvas of purple, pink, and gold, streaked with faint clouds. Lyra helped the girls prepare a small dinner, while Jax checked the water systems and the dome panels one last time. The chores were simple but meaningful, each task reinforcing the sense of community and trust that had grown over the past days. After dinner, the girls settled down with a small storybook they had found in a crate Jax had saved from the old settlement. Lyra read aloud, her voice soft and soothing. Jax leaned back, watching her interact with the girls, and felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. When the story ended, the girls were already asleep, their small breathing patterns calm and rhythmic. Lyra and Jax stepped outside once more, the desert quiet and still under the emerging stars. "You know," Lyra said softly, "I think this is the first time I've felt like I can belong somewhere." Jax looked at her, eyes reflecting the starlight. "You do belong, not just here but with us, with this family. You've helped build it not just with your hands, but with your heart." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had spent so long running, hiding, surviving, And now here she had found trust, care, and acceptance. She had found a family. Jax's hand found hers again, gentle and reassuring. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about how much stronger we are together, about how much happier the girls are with you here, and about what we can build in the future." Lyra looked at him, her heart swelling. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we can be more than just a temporary shelter," he said with a small smile. "We can be a family, not just for a moment, but for all the days ahead. I want to ask you something." Lyra's eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent, letting him continue. "I need a mother for my girls," Jax said simply, his voice steady but soft. "And you need shelter, a place where you belong. Would you stay? Be part of this family, not just for now, but for always." Lyra's heart raced. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight she had not expected. She looked at the sleeping girls through the window, their peaceful faces a reminder of why she had stayed. She looked at Jax, whose quiet strength and care had earned her trust. I would like that," she said finally, her voice trembling with emotion. "I would like that very much." Jax's face broke into a small, relieved smile. "Then it's settled." They stood together, hands intertwined, watching the stars appear above the desert. The world was quiet but full of promise. For Lyra, Jax, and the girls, the future was no longer uncertain. It was bright, full of laughter, small adventures, and shared moments. They had survived storms, both literal and emotional, and they had found strength in each other. The next morning, the family woke to the soft light of the twin suns rising over New Horizon. Lyra and Jax helped the girls tend the garden, their teamwork seamless, their laughter mingling with the gentle wind. The day was filled with small projects, quiet joy, and the sense that life, even in a harsh world, could be beautiful. As the suns climbed higher, Lyra paused to look at Jax. "We've built something special here," she said. He nodded. "Yes, not just a home, but a family. And the best part, we'll keep building every day." The girls ran past them, chasing the wind and each other, their laughter echoing across the desert. Lyra smiled, feeling a fullness she had never known. For the first time, she felt truly rooted, truly loved, and truly at peace. Even in a distant world with dust storms and harsh sun, they had found a home. Not just a shelter, but a family. Not just survival, but joy. And together they would face whatever the horizon held as a family united, strong, and full of hope. The twin suns shone brightly overhead, reflecting the warmth in their hearts. And for Lyra, Jax, and the girls, the story of survival had become the story of belonging. A story that would continue with laughter, love, and small moments of wonder for all the days to come.